Hey, it's Craig from cigarcraig.com here with Steve Saka. You're debuting the Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust and the Sobremesa. How you doing, Steve?
I'm still alive.
Still alive?
Survived day one.
Traffic's been heavy?
It's been really super steady. I don't really know how many we sold, but I think we might have sold 1,000 boxes this first day.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I didn't really know what to expect. I mean, I'm pretty blessed, actually.
That's cool. I know you had some anxieties about it, which are probably largely unfounded. But
I don't have any anxieties about selling the cigars. What I have anxiety about is, whether people are going to like them or not, because it's like everything that I make. It's something that I personally like, but I mean the bar is pretty high, so there's a lot of expectations, and everybody has their own level of expectation, and it's very hard to meet what somebody has conjured up in their minds as to what it's going to be. And there's a lot of people that are thinking it's going to be the next Liga, and it simply isn't. It's a much different blend than Liga. Do I think it's a wonderful blend? I do. I absolutely love it, or I wouldn't make it. But just because I absolutely think it's a wonderful blend doesn't mean that other people are going to think it's absolutely a wonderful blend. So I'm apprehensive about that. There's a certain element. I want to satisfy people. I want them to feel like it's not an inexpensive cigar. So when they buy it, I want them to feel as though they got their money's worth. So that's really important to me.
cool. You want to tell us about the cigar?
Sure. Sobremesa, just the concept behind the brand is Sobremesa literally means over the table. That's the literal translation. But what it actually is it's an idiom in the Spanish, more in the Latin culture. And what it means is it's the period of time that after the meal at night, you stay at the table and enjoy each other's company. So in the Latin culture, rather than you eat and you get up and you leave and go do your things, what happens is family and friends stay at the table and they have a little drink and they have a little smoke and they have a little dessert and they have a little cafe and they sit and they tell stories and they joke, and this period of time is called sobremesa. It's a very common thing. In fact, it's kind of weird because every time I show the brand to my Latin friends, they look and they go, they kind of smile, and then they go, wow, what a great name, and then they go, why didn't I think of that? Because it's part of their culture. They do it all of the time, but they just never really thought about it.
It's
so
amazing that nobody's trademarked that, right?
it blows me away. 2 centuries of this being a word that's used every single day, and nobody has ever put the two together. And that's why, look, it's hard to come up with good brand ideas and good brand names, but there are some out there that are still untapped. You just have to think about it a little bit.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
The blend?
The blend, yeah, it's tobacco.
Tobacco? That's good. It's a good start.
Well, the cigars are being made with my friends at Hoya in Nicaragua. I have a long relationship with them. I love them. They are great. They make really great cigars, and of course they're most famous for Antaño. And the thing though, Hoya has a very distinct flavor profile in everything they make. Pretty much, they've been making Nicaraguan puros now for going on 46 years, and as a result, their inventories of tobacco are very specific to their particular cigar. And part of the criteria for me was when we started talking about doing this project together. It's not that I don't love what they make, but I didn't want to just make something that they currently make, right, a deviation. I wanted to really step outside the box. And just like when I was with Drew, they were primarily known for making acid, and I said, I really want to do something different. So that's when we embarked on the Liga project, was to really change the way people look at the factory and see that they're not just capable of making acid and natural and whatnot, but they're also capable of making a really heavy-duty traditional cigar. Now, in the case of Hoya, they make a heavy-duty traditional cigar. They've been doing it for decades without any help on my part. But at the same time, I wanted to get them to make something that would be unique to them. And so as part of the deal, when I sat down with Alejandro and Juan, was this conversation about tobacco. And I said, look, I really want to do this, but part and parcel of this is you're going to pretty much have to allow me to go and source all of my own leaf and let me bring this tobacco into the factory. Some of it I'll buy, some of it you'll buy, but we have to work out something so that we can create something that's unique for the Hoya factory, so that not only we can make something that I'll truly love to smoke all the time, but it'll also expand your universe, you know, blending and portfolio wise. And that's kind of was the starting point. I have to tell you, we initially started working just with their tobaccos, just so I could get a good sense of what they had and how it worked together. Because, you know, I was intimately familiar with my previous company's tobacco, but I wasn't as intimately familiar with Hoya's. So, you know, we made about 10 or 12 test blends that had none of the leaf I wanted. Well, not that I didn't want it, but had none of the leaf that I was going to bring in myself, was just using exclusively their stuff. So I could try to identify what I liked and what I didn't like. And ultimately what we ended up doing is I ended up bringing in a wrapper from my friends at Oliva from their La Meca farm. It's Ecuador Habano, dark rosado, grade 1. And then I brought in a Habano Ecuador. Everyone has their own opinion about it, okay? A lot of people talk about how flavorful a wrapper it is. I actually don't agree with that. I find it to be a very pretty wrapper. I find it to have a very nuanced taste. I find it appealing, but it's not a very bold wrapper. So for me, the binder that goes underneath has a tremendous impact on Ecuador Habano, particularly when you're 7th priming and lower. So for me, the binder was really super duper critical. So I ended up going with a rather strange binder. There's a couple young farmers out of Mexico. They're not very well known, and they have a farm called Vegas de Perro, Vegas of the dogs, Vegas de Perros. And I'm like, well, why would you name your farm the farm of the dogs, right? And he's like, oh, because we have a lot of stray dogs. You know? Like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But these guys, they do something unique there, and they spit it as a positive, but I think the reality is they don't have enough money. And what they do is they don't irrigate the tobacco. So what they do is they plant it very late in the season, and they allow it to go into rainy season, okay? So it gets natural irrigation from the rainy season. So it's called Matacapan, because they're in the Matacapan district of San Andreas, de temporal, which means storm. So they grow the tobacco in the rainy season. What I like about their tobacco is it has an incredible level of sweetness. It's just a super sweet, you know, much more sweeter than most of the San Andreas Maduros that I've had, and it really complements the Ecuador wrapper in a really, really great way. Now for the filler recipe, there's 5 tripas. 4 of them are Nicaraguan, and then the 5th one is one of the Ligeros. The 4 Nicaraguans, it starts off with a base leaf, a seco, that's grown, boy, I'm drawing a blank here for a moment, bear with me. I'm listening to George over on my other side of me. It's from Condega, and it's grown by GK. They're with Universal. It's a farmer named Santiago, and it's a specific seed variety that they grow, and that I happen to like a lot. Most Condega tobaccos don't really tend to grab my interest, but this one, it has a really nice cedary kind of nuance to it that I really like. And then we have 2 visos. The one viso comes from Pueblo Nueva. Pueblo Nueva is a district that's really just west of Condega, but it's much different because in Condega, it's a typical tobacco valley, very picturesque. Pueblo Nueva isn't anything like that. Pueblo Nueva is a lot of very small farmers with very little plots. A manzana here, a half a manzana there, 3 manzanas over there. So there's really no good way to source that tobacco. The only way you can really get enough that's usable is you have to actually go and buy it from each individual farmer. But it has a unique taste, much different than a lot of other Nicaraguan tobaccos, because it isn't one of the 3 primary reasons, or the 4th if you start to count Amatepe in there with Nestor's operation there. The second viso comes from Oliva Tobacco. It comes from their La Jolla farm there in Esteli, and it's a really, really, really nice Criollo seed, a C98 seed. But I think it's not so much the tobacco itself that makes that tobacco special. I think it's the way that they ferment it. Gustavo Cura and Rene Valdivia, they basically lay it out in sheets. So rather than making a typical gavilla in which you make a pilon, what they do is they actually string the tobacco. So each leaf is individually exposed on a string. And then when they build the pilon, they take it like a sheet and they swing it in the air and it floats down on the pilon. What ends up happening is all that tobacco ends up being la plancha on the pilon. So what ends up happening is they can ferment it at a much, much lower temperature, much slower, and it gets a much more even fermentation, and it really lets the flavor of the leaf come out in this particular variety. There's two Ligeros. The first Ligero is one that a lot of people use. It's grown by the Perez family. It's ASP Ligero. It's that typical, that's that hybrid bush kind of plant that they have. It's very unique. It's a very very spicy tobacco. Adds a lot of bit of pepper to it. And then the second Ligero that I added was a Pennsylvania Maduro, a broadleaf that's grown in Lancaster County. And I chose that because it gives me that kind of earthy roundness that I tend to like in cigars. So it's basically it's a 7 tobacco blend, you know, with 4 of them being Nicaraguan, 1 of them being United States, 1 being Mexican, and 1 being Ecuador. So it's a pretty intricate blend, and it's a much more intricate blend than most of Hoya's traditional Nicaraguan puros. So I'm pretty excited about it. I can't promise everyone they're going to love it, but you know my attitude about this is, and I say it every single time, I don't believe in making cigars that everybody likes. I would, because when you make a cigar that everybody likes, you've ultimately made a cigar that nobody loves. So for me, I would be very happy if, you know, a few guys smoke and go, wow, that's amazing, and hopefully they'll add it to their humidor rotation.
Cool. I like the inclusion of the Pennsylvania leaf. That's cool. It's
Homer there, huh?
That's right.
The hometown team.
The next county over. Yeah.
Well, I have to tell you, I mean, I think you're going to see a lot more of that being used. I saw a couple other people.
I've heard a couple other people using it.
I think Sam Leckia in one of his blends is using it. I know that Skip at Roma Craft, he uses some of that. It's a very, very nice Ligero. It really, really is, and it gives you a lot of oomph, but it doesn't give you that same kind of picante kind of nature to it. So it adds strength, but without the bite, you know. And so I find it very, very satisfying. And I mean, you know, people have been asking me about the strength. I would probably put it somewhere around a 6.5 to 7-ish, in that range. Probably 7 is probably a better way to describe it on a 10-point scale. I mean, it's strong enough that it's satisfying, but it's not to the point that it's you know, brutal or you know, harsh on the palate. You know, so it's an interesting cigar.
Look forward to trying it. You say it'll be October?
It's going to basically, what I'm waiting for now is I'm waiting for the moisture to wick out of them. You know, the first production's been produced. It's a continuous production cigar because I'm not a believer in batch production. I know that's very popular, but I believe it's much better to keep a pair making the same blend every single day, day in, day out. It becomes far more consistent. They do a better job making it. It has a lot more flavor as a result, much more consistent construction, and in the end, I think everyone's happier. So it's continually being produced every day at this point, and I believe that the first cigars will be ready for release sometime in the fall. I'm not exactly sure. It's going to just depend on the Escapartes, and when they're ready, they'll be ready.
That's great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's it?
That's it.
That was easy enough.
We wish you the best of luck. One other dumb question.
Yeah.
Is the name of the company, of course, is your hometown.
Yeah, Dunbarton
Hampshire.
Tobacco and Trust. That's the name of the company. I live in Dunbarton, New Hampshire, and it's a little small town that happens to be the geographical center of New England. It's a little place of all of 2,900 people, and the tobacco part of the name is evident. The trust part is because we're trying to sound extra special. But actually, I'm trying to buy I think it's pretty much fallen through. I was in the process of trying to buy an old bank building in downtown Concord to headquarter it out. But I now have a feeling I'm going to be stuck building a bank is the way it's looking, because I don't think that deal is going to go through.
And is it going to have a drive-through?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we're going to serve fries and everything.
I can't wait to hear you on the microphone for the drive-through.
What did you order, huh? Huh? Can't hear you. You want that supersized?
That's great. And is it a happy coincidence that Dunbarton follows Drew Estate in the catalog?
You know, I didn't even think about that. I didn't realize it until I got it. It is kind of funny, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Had I thought about it, I would have made it ahead of Drew Estate. But I did. The planning was kind of bad. I didn't realize it.
All right. Well, of course, we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
And we look forward to everything you do.
Well, thanks. I really appreciate
you taking
it.
the time to speak with us here.
Yeah.
And
Thanks.
I'll try and get this out.
See what happens. You know, I
Awesome.
ask everyone to give it a try, and you know, if they don't like it, don't buy. If they like it, buy more.
There you go.
It's just